former member of the Trump transition team, a woman who knows a thing or two about the Donald, a woman who knows exactly what probably he's going to say tomorrow when he turns up to face what he calls the trumped-up charges of the extreme left of Georgia and the state prosecutor. Jan, a very good afternoon to you.
Oh, Mike, it's nice to see you.
Thank you very much indeed. So, he already appeared in a court to plead not guilty. Is this something that he has to do, or is it something that he's sort of voluntarily doing?
I think it's mandatory that he has to show up. He had to put up a $200,000 bond as well, because somehow she thought he might flee the country. So he posted on social, "Oh, I'll go to Russia, because of the Russia hoax."
Right.
But yeah, he's enjoying all of this.
Well, it's not doing him any harm, is it? I mean, every single time, and I think he made the joke himself, you know, all I need is one more indictment to get back into the White House, because with every, as you and I have discussed before, with every kind of indictment that hits, he gets more popular, he raises more money, and he becomes ever more likely, certainly, to be the Republican candidate and possibly even the next president.
You're absolutely right about that. I think what he really likes about the Georgia case is that it's going to give him a chance to provide all of his evidence about the 2020 election. We really need to really look at that again and settle it, or else we can't move on to other elections.
Right. And paradoxically, as you say, that will then now be heard in the court. They will have to examine the documents, and we'll find out once and for all whether he's got anything or whether they can just dismiss it out of hand. I heard an incredible statement made this morning by a guy whose name I didn't catch on that dreadful Radio 4 programme today. He was a former Bush administration aide, and he was explaining what Trump had been found guilty of. And he said, here's the thing, he said, you know, he's been found guilty in a civil court of sexual assault, so we can say that he is guilty of rape, because that is the term that people use. And he said, so it's legitimate for us to say that he's been found guilty of rape. And I'm sitting there going, sorry, excuse me, one, he hasn't been found guilty of anything. You know, there was a civil case. Yes, the court found in favour of the complainant, but that does not mean you can then say that Donald Trump is a rapist. But this was the logic of the crazed left. It's amazing, isn't it?
Well, it is. And in fact, you know, the New York state changed their laws so that if you touch someone's shoulder, if you hug them without asking permission, that is considered sexual assault. So that's what he was basically accused of. And he was exonerated from the accusation of rape. I mean, if he raped her in a dressing room of one of the biggest, most important, expensive stores on Fifth Avenue, people would have known about it.
Yeah. I still have a tie from there, from when I used to live there. It's a very nice tie, and I don't wear it very often. I should wear it more. Let's talk about what Donald Trump has said. He basically calls the situation in Atlanta. He says, I'm going to be arrested by a radical left district attorney. He says that Fannie Wills, the Democrat district attorney in Fulton County, is carrying out a witch hunt in strict coordination with the U.S. Department of Justice. And I think for those people who look at it from this country, even those who don't like Donald Trump, they've all agreed that this does look more and more like a very politically motivated series of indictments. And I don't mean just Georgia, I mean Florida, I mean New York. You know, everywhere that he has been charged, people can see what it is, can they?
Well, of course they can. And what people need to ask themselves is, why are these people so afraid of Donald Trump? They've been trying to destroy him from the moment he came down the golden escalator at Trump Tower, and they have failed, and they continue to fail. I mean, I've known Nancy Pelosi for 40-odd years, and the one thing I can count on her for is to fail at what she tries to do. And she tried to have him impeached twice. You know, when you think about in 2017, Biden, or I think it was, sorry, I might have the year wrong, it might be 2015, he and Hunter received a $10 million bribe. In 2018, Biden gets on the TV and says that he threatened the head of Ukraine that if they didn't fire that prosecutor, they wouldn't get the $1 billion, and he was leaving office in about 6 hours.
Right.
He's bragged about it so many times. And then in 2019, Donald Trump calls Zelensky to ask what was going on, and he gets impeached over it. When you see that kind of hypocrisy, you have to know something else is going on.
Yes, and also the accusations that he faces in Georgia, which we've spoken about as well before, which are that, you know, he was actively dismissing the election result. We've got a clip here from John Eastman, an attorney who has also been charged alongside Donald Trump. He's not backing down at all. When asked if he thought the 2020 election was stolen, here's what he said.
I asked him about the 2020 election. Watch some of our exchange. Do you still think the election was stolen?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Still.
No question. No question in my mind.
And you won't answer on immunity from prosecution?
Won't answer that.
Do you think that the others in this case have a standing on that? People like Meadows?
No comment.
Did they do a mugshot and everything inside?
No comment.
Thank you, sir.
So he says that he believes that the 2020 election was stolen. We also put it to our good friend, yours and mine, Joe Walsh, the former Republican congressman, who still hasn't recovered from me calling him holier than thou, by the way.
Oh, God, you were so great. You were just so great. It was just one of those moments in TV.
Yeah, it was funny. You know, I said, I can show you a countenance of Democrat politicians, including Hillary Clinton, who have all said exactly the same thing about the 2016 election, but none of them are in court. I can also tell you about the US Senate, who actually voted down the election result in 2016 and said that it wasn't legal, but none of them are in court. So it's a bit of a weird situation, isn't it?
Well, it is. But think about Edward Snowden and think about all the information he exposed. So if you think that Donald Trump wrote an executive order 13848 September 12th, 2018, and in that he outlined the kind of theft that could possibly happen in 2020. How would he have known to even write that in 2018 or to suspect that it might even be going on for our 2018 midterms? The military has all of the information. And Donald Trump was supposed to have a press conference this past Monday because the people that had done the research on 2,000 Mules had put together a whole just extensive research on the thefts that had been going on just in Georgia. And he was going to announce it, but his attorneys wanted to submit it legally, file it.
Right.
And I think that's a much better approach because they would have found some way to criticize him for.
And I mean, if presumably if the Georgia courts throws all that out and says, look, none of this really matters, none of it counts for anything, what will that do to his case then?
If the Georgia throws
out Donald Trump's evidence, to say that it was stolen, if that happens, what happens to his case then?
I don't think that they'll be able to throw it out because it's a jury trial.
Right.
And so that is evidence that the defense is submitting, and the jury has to consider it.
Right.
The prosecutor will try to refute it, but it's going to be pretty hard to be refuted.
Right.
Look, to understand the 2020 election, the fact is that we're a republic. So our elections in each state are controlled differently. And so there was a lot of changes that shouldn't have been made. For example, in Pennsylvania, the Supreme Court extended the length of time people could submit their ballots. Technically, only the legislature of a state can make any changes to the election laws. And you can go through the different states left and right about that. They use COVID, and frankly, we're on the side that believe that the Democrats like to ensure they're going to win through maybe not the best means.
Well, certainly there were those who expressed surprise that Donald Trump's actual election numbers went up. He got more people voting for him in 2020, I think, than he did in 2016, and he still lost,
Yeah.
which people have been quite surprised about.
Well, technically he lost, but it's going to show that he really didn't lose.
Right. Well, it's going to be fascinating. And the timing of the case is also interesting, isn't it, Jan? Because they're talking about trying to bring the trial forward now to make it happen perhaps in January, which would be right smack bang in the middle, would it not, of the primaries?
Oh, it'll be the start of the primaries.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think that he's happy that they're saying they want to do it within 6 months, because the Georgia case, if he proves it, which I know he has the evidence, but if he proves it, then the rest of the cases fall apart.
Right. Fascinating stuff. Jan Halper-Hayes will be watching as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Former member of the Trump